Hi, I'm Tina Hudson of Completing Christ Ministries. Thank you for joining me today for Thursday Talk with Tina. You know, there's an old saying that says money doesn't grow on trees. And while that may be true, I think we can learn a lot of wisdom from the Word of God as far as how we are to treat our money. Maybe as loosely as if it did grow on trees. And by that I mean just not being stingy, not hoarding it, not making a God out of the blessings that God has given us. I think James would agree with that when he says in James chapter 5, verse 1, "Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you." And he's talking here about money, and we wonder why on earth would they need to weep and howl? Why would they need to mourn over the fact that they have money? Well, as we're going to see, their money had become more important to them than their God. They were receiving it out of greedy ways rather than receiving from God and then using that money for productive sources. James goes on in chapter 5, verse 2, and he says, "Your riches have rotted, and your garments are moth-eaten." In other words, there's no lasting value in money or in clothing, in possessions. Those are all temporal things that will eventually pass away. And he says in verse 3, "Your gold and silver have corroded, and their corrosion will be evidence against you and will eat your flesh like fire. You have laid up treasure for the last days." And so what he's saying there is that their riches, their gold and their silver, are things that can corrode, that can rust, that can lose its value over time. And the fact that we hoard up those things, that we receive them in greedy ways, or we obtain them through greed, is evidence that our hearts are not right with God. And the more we desire any idol in our lives, which is anything that is more important, any one that is more important to us than God, anytime that becomes our pursuit, then it burns within us, and it becomes like a fire that burns from within, because it's the wrong thing to pursue. Now, money is not wrong. We need money in order to pay our bills. We need to store up money for rainy days. But it's all in the heart attitude. How are we holding on to our money? Are we laying up treasures in heaven that will really last by using the resources God has given us? Or are we hoarding those, keeping those from being used? I think Wayne uses a principle sometimes that I think will help us. He says that we must hold all of the gifts that we have received from God, all of our blessings, all of our money, with open hands. And when we do, God is free to instruct us, give to this person or give to this cause, and we're free to do that. When we hold our possessions, our money, our talents, our time, anything that we have received from God with closed fists, then we are shutting ourselves off from the blessings of God, of being able to use the resources with which He has blessed us. But when we hold with open hands, not only are we able to be used by God to bless others, but we are free to receive more from God. The cycle continues. We receive from God, so therefore we're able to give. So what's your attitude today about your finances? Do you feel like, I worked, I earned these things, this is mine? Or do you realize that you have a job and the ability to hold that job because of what God has given you? I encourage you, hold your possessions loosely. Don't become greedy or desirous of receiving more just so that you can store it up for yourself. Be willing to be used by God to lay up treasures in heaven by using the blessings that He has so generously given you to bless others. So go today, be blessed in Jesus, and thank you so much.